Hello there, lovely ladies and gentlemen. Let's get started with one more live. In today's live, I will take on the subject of baiting. Baiting is actually a manipulation tactic that is used in a number of different ways, and narcissists absolutely love them. Before we get started, heads up, on July 3rd, we are launching the Inner Mastery Lab. We're launching it on the 3rd, but we start on the 20th. So keep your eye open because there are often early bird specials, okay, and certain bonuses that you can get if you act quickly. All right, so what is baiting? Why do narcissists do it? And how can you protect yourself from this? Baiting comes from the word bait. Well, what is bait? It's something that you use to attract someone else, in this case fish, right? And the fish think he's getting a juicy meal, but what he's really gonna get is he's gonna become someone's juicy meal. So baiting is very similar to that. You offer someone, you attract someone with a promise of this one thing, and then when they get close to you thinking that that's what they're gonna get, you switch it up and you actually give them something else, which oftentimes has got to do with abuse, being humiliated, being taken advantage of. And so, obviously, when it comes to taking advantage of people, this is certainly something that narcissists like to do. Now, there's many different types of baiting, and I'm going to try to go into a bunch of different nuances so that you can identify this in your relationships, be it with your parents, with some other family member, a coworker, or a friend even. So, the very first type of baiting is when you provoke someone to get them angry, and then when they do lash out, you act like you're innocent and they're just like, crazy and they can't control themselves. So it's that person who's gonna like provoke you and provoke you and provoke you and provoke you. And when you get really pissed off, they'll just look at you and be like, see, I can't talk to you. You only have reactions like this. You're not mature. You don't know how to talk about things. So I'm going to give you a few examples. Some of these examples might seem a little bit off, like kind of extreme, okay, over the top. But these are all true examples that either clients of mine, followers, or I myself have experienced, right? One example, let's say that you have a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic mom, who grabs a knife and then tries to attack you with it. And then when you block her to try to defend yourself, she starts screaming out, help, help, she wants to kill me. So if anyone arrives at that specific moment where you're going like this and you're obviously like the bigger, physically bigger maybe than your mom, people are going to see that scene, this old lady, a younger person and a knife in the middle somewhere and the old lady screaming. Well, they're going to probably believe what the old lady's saying. So they will set you up to be mistaken for some sort of abuser or something else. Another example is, and this is a really heavy example, and I really thought about whether I was going to share this with you guys. It is a personal example. And when I do these videos, my goal is never to like talk about really sad stories that I went through or specific things that my family members did, but sometimes it's really useful to mention something because some behaviors are just so bizarre that until someone else comes and describes them to you, oftentimes you cannot really even define for yourself what's going on. So here's a type of baiting, for example. There was a time in my life where I lost my stepdad. He had a heart attack and he passed away. And he was my mom's primary source of narcissistic supply. And as we know, when a narcissist loses supply, they will, go a little bit crazy. And her way of lashing out was actually threatening to commit suicide. And this went on for quite a while. And it wasn't just, I'm going to commit suicide. It was actually more a form of psychological terrorism where for months I would receive messages throughout the day in phone calls with messages like, hey, so I was thinking that, I'd better commit suicide by shooting my brains out. What do you think? I was looking at this gun, and they should send me the link to the gun, and she would describe the way that she would die. And then later on in the day, she'd be like, I was also thinking about taking this poison, but the problem is this does this to your insides, and then when you guys find my body, it's going to look this way. So obviously, when you hear that your mom is going to commit suicide, right, this affects you a little bit. And I sure as heck loved my mom an awful lot, and I did not want to lose her. And it was psychological terrorism for me to find out that she was only doing that to me. She wasn't doing that to my sisters. And that it was so consistent. And when she talked about it, I would have physiological reactions of intense anxiety. I couldn't breathe correctly, and my heart would race, and I couldn't physically be close to her because it was just so intense. And there was this one situation where she started with that, right? She started saying, so I'm going to commit suicide, and I'm going to do it this way and that other way. And I started having all of these horrible reactions, and I said, Mom, please stop. I can't take it. It really hurts me to hear this. Listen, we'll talk about this later. And I left the room and I went to another room. And then she came after me and she kept at it. Yeah, but there's also this other way that I can commit suicide, and then I can do it the same day that your stepfather died, because that way, you'll only mourn one day in the year. And I was like, Mom, please, this is really affecting me. I'm not ready to talk about this right now. Please, can we talk about this later? And then I left the room and I went to another room. And this went on for quite a while. And I kept begging her, please, please leave me alone. We'll talk about this later. I can't deal with this. Please leave me alone. And I kept going from one room to the next until I actually ran out of the house. And we had this other little house outside of our house. And I went into that house and she came after me and she kept up with it. And I was inside the house and she was outside the house, and there was a window. So I was looking at her through the window, and this window had bars on it. This is very common in São Paulo because it's a dangerous city. So our windows here oftentimes have bars. And I snapped. She just kept going at it, and I snapped, and I stretched my arm through the bars and I grabbed her head. And I realized that right then and there that I was going to smash her head up against the bars. And then when I grabbed her and I came to, I was like, oh my God, Mom, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. And at that point, she made this face like I was the craziest person in the world. And she's like, I always knew that you needed psychological help. See, you're unhinged. Look at you. Look at the way you react. You have so many problems. You would have so many more problems if I hadn't been your mom and healed you, and that sort of talk. Now, I know this is a very heavy story, and I actually shared some details here. And though it's, again, a very, very, very dense, heavy story, I do hope that for those of you who have dealt with similar situations, I hope that you feel a little bit validated and consoled that you dealt with such extreme things, and really oftentimes people outside of our immediate family environment cannot see. So that's another type of baiting, right? They psychologically torture you in order for you to have a reaction, and when you do, obviously you're the one who's unhinged. Another type of baiting that kind of gets mixed up with gaslighting and hoovering is when they notice that you are going gray rock, low contact, or no contact, and they are just not having it. So what do? They start doing things in order to lure you back into the relationship. And it might be triangulation, it might be a smear campaign, and then you kind of catch wind of this, right? The flying monkeys tell you that things have been said about you, that you've been accused of this and that. Now, imagine being accused of a bunch of things that you did not do, particularly in a family or a work environment where you want to defend yourself because there's people there, that you have to interact with, maybe people that you love, you want to have contact with. So the narcissist is actually counting on all of these emotional reactions that you are having. The need to defend yourself, to clear your name. And they know that you're feeling all of these things and that you're going to pop up and pop back into their lives in order to defend yourself, right, from what they said. And then you've been baited. This is actually hoovering mixed with baiting, and also mixed with a bit of gaslighting, because in situations like this, when you're constantly being baited, and then, the expression is actually to bait and switch, or to bait and bash. You're constantly being baited and bashed, right? It gets to a point where you start asking yourself, because other people in your family or in your environment also see you through the lens that the narcissist painted. It gets to the point where you're like, how the heck am I going to protect myself? What am I going to do now? And everyone starts treating you that way, as if what you had done, what you had been accused of, was true. And you start thinking that it is true, that maybe you are the bad one. You are the abusive one, right? So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is when they offer you one thing and then they give you something else. So, for example, let's say that you've been kind of no contact with your family for a while, and you get a very loving message from your dad, and you're like, wow, this is weird. He's being extra loving, right? And you decide, okay, I'm gonna go to this family dinner that my dad just invited me to. It's been a while. Maybe he's being more loving nowadays. I'll just go and see what's up. So you go to the family dinner and you think that you're going to have this loving family interaction, and really he just starts humiliating you and bringing up things from the past that he knows are sensitive subjects for you, right? And you understand that you've been baited. He offered you a lovely family dinner, but what you got was actually just being humiliated, right? And being drawn into that. Another way that they can offer you one thing and actually give you another thing is when they extend an opportunity, right? Or they say they're going to help you with something that's important for you, when really all they want is like to have sex with you or to get something else from you. So have you guys watched that series called Surviving R. Kelly? That's a very good series for you to watch if you want to learn about this type of baiting, where essentially R. Kelly would seduce underage women, not always underage women, but he would seduce aspiring artists by basically telling them that he was going to help them with their singing, with their career. But what happened was that he really just wanted to have sex with them. And the baiting went even further, where he would have these relationships with women who did not know he had other women. And then he would invite them to live with him. And then this woman was like, yeah, I'm going to go live with my love, R. Kelly. And then when they got there, there was actually like a bunch of other women there who were also part of his harem, right? So you're offered this relationship. Maybe you think you're like, it's a form of a marriage, right? But what you get is you're part of a harem. And you're not really going to get that sort of relationship at all. Another example, let's say that you're the daughter of the owner of an important company. Somebody might get close to you, offering you a relationship when really they have no interest in you. What they want is to get close to your dad, right? Another example. You see, there's like so many different ways that it can happen. That's why it's good to, oh, sorry, there's a cat here. That's why it's good to give different sorts of examples. So, for example, let's say that your narcissist tells you that they really enjoy something. Like, I really enjoy that Italian restaurant downtown. It's really the best in town. And so you try to please your narcissist, and you think, I know, I'm going to take them to this restaurant they already told me they enjoy. It's going to be great. And you take them there and they eat, and then they start criticizing everything. And they're like, ugh, this steak is no good. Or what is up with this pasta? This doesn't taste like legitimate Italian pasta, or whatever it is that they say. And you realize that there is nothing you can do that is ever going to be good enough. And again, they offered you this idea that it was possible to please them through this specific restaurant, right? But what they actually give you in practice is you get humiliated, criticized, and it's never good enough. A classical form of baiting is love bombing in and of itself. Love bombing, what is love bombing? That's basically me creating a persona, right, where I'm super attuned to your needs, to your emotions, to what you like, to the things that you do, and I will mirror this back to you to the point where you'll think like, I'm a really important person and we've had this deep connection and I'm going to give you so much attention and I'm going to just mirror back the things to you that you want to be mirrored back to you. And you're going to believe that what we're going to have is a relationship. But what happens as soon as the narcissist realizes that they have actually locked you down? Well, what's going to happen is the quality of the relationship is going to change. Either it's going to become abusive or they're going to become aloof, indifferent. They're going to neglect you and essentially withdraw from the relationship. That's baiting. They offer you one thing, but they give you another thing. Another way, see, there's just like so many ways that this can happen. Another way that you can get baited is when they act that like they've accepted something, right? They act like they agree with you when it comes to whatever, a course of action or whatever. So you think, oh, okay, we're on the same page, so I can expect this. But then they go behind your back and they do something else. I have a friend, for example, who is the daughter of a pathological narcissist. And when her mom got pregnant, her mom was actually getting ready to start out this big career. And I believe it was in the military. And in order for her to start there, and she had passed on all the entrance exams and everything, she couldn't be pregnant, right? And she wasn't pregnant. And she approached her husband and she said, hey, this is my dream. I want to do this. You know, I know you want to have other kids, but let's hold out for a little bit because I really want to get this job. And he told her, yeah, sure, honey. And then behind her back, he pierced the condoms and he got her pregnant. And then she found out, you know, obviously when she got pregnant. And then what happened? She rejected the child. She had postpartum depression and she was never actually able to bond with that child. So that's a weird sort of baiting. Another weird sort of baiting is they pretend to be super interested in you and they seem to be quite empathetic people. They listen to you deeply. They want to know all the details about your dreams, about what you're going through. And you feel, wow, like I'm finally being seen. And then what do? They get all of this information and they just store it in the back of their minds for that moment when they need to use it against you. So you got one thing, you're like, I'm being listened to, I'm being seen, this is great. But really their intention was something else altogether all along. Another type of baiting is, this is a horrible type of baiting right here, is they will actually do nice things for you and you think you're just being loved and being treated well and, you know, be like you. And so you accept those nice things because it just seems like they're being generous. And you think there's no strings attached. And that's what you expect. Just, you know, nice things with no strings attached because they're just, you know, doing favors for you. You didn't ask for them. But then there are strings attached. And you find out after you've received the favor that they were actually like generating this debt and that they're going to make you pay it, you know, when they decide that it's time to make you pay it. And you're like, what the heck, I owe you this? I didn't realize that when you offered me those things that I was going to be forced to do this for you. So you think you're getting nice treatment, you think they're just being generous, but really they're generating a debt. Here's a weird type of baiting. There are some narcissists that will tell you up front, listen, this is how I work. I don't do this. I'm like that. And it is what it is. If you want to be with me, then that's how it goes. And then, of course, that's how they are. They're abusive and they're neglectful. Now, you might say, Tiny, that's not baiting. Because if they told you up front that they're abusive and neglectful, and then you accepted it, then how were they, you know, tricking you? The confusing part about this sort of attitude that some narcissists have is that they will tell you this in the beginning when they are also love bombing you. So, you know, most of communication doesn't really happen through words. It happens through all of the other things that go on, like nonverbal cues and just the stuff that's going on. Like, imagine if someone's giving you so much attention and so much what you think is love, right? And they're just mirroring back all your interests and all your emotions and your inner states and everything. Even though they're telling you, hey, I don't do this, I don't do that, during the love bombing phase, what you think is like, well, all right, if you have those limitations, but I'm going to get all this attention and love, I'm cool with that. But that's not what happens. What happens is, as you know, when they lock you in, when there is an attachment formed, then, they'll start actually doing what they said that they were going to do. So it's a type of baiting because even though they warned you, in practice, they promised you something else. You saw their behavior was something else. And so you accepted it. Another type of baiting, and this is actually a type of baiting that some followers try to use with not only me, but other people who offer information on specialized information on a number of topics. So I was also thinking about whether or not I should mention this because it is followers who do this. And so it might be one or two of you, but I'm going to mention this because the truth is, if we're dealing with narcissists and particularly narcissistic parents, obviously we are going to have some traits as well. We're going to have our wounds, right? And we're going to have to lick those wounds and heal them. And it is absolutely true that many of my followers have narcissistic traits and might probably have narcissistic personality disorder. So what some of them do is the way that they try to bait me or by offering me one thing and then actually like delivering another is that first of all, it's very common for people who find a video on YouTube to feel touched and to feel seen. And because of all of that emotion, oftentimes they've never felt so seen in their lives. Oftentimes they'll get in touch with me and they'll send me like a very long message telling me their life story. Well, this is normal. This is normal. Oftentimes these people haven't had anyone to talk to their entire lives. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm also not talking about people who get in touch and they're like, hey, do you offer consultations? How much do you charge? What are your available slots? That's not what I'm talking about. What some followers do to me is they get in touch. They will flatter my ego. Oh, you're great. You're great at this. You're great at that. You know what? I'm going to buy everything you do. Next launch, I'm going to be part of the Inner Mastery Lab. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that other thing. You can bet your bottom dollar I will. But, just for the time being, do you think you can help me out with this little issue? And then they'll send you like 10 1-minute audios. And obviously, do you listen to 10-minute audio from your best friend? Is that something normal that you do? So it doesn't make sense for you to think that someone on the internet is going to be listening to everybody who sends them 10-minute audios, right? And they know that if they want to talk about all of that stuff in those 10-minute audios, the correct thing to do would be to pay for a consultation because it's going to take an hour, right? For the things to be worked through, but they don't want to. So they want to get something for free. And the way that they do it is they'll say, listen, I'm going to buy all of this stuff in order to get what they want, right? And then obviously they don't buy anything. So this is also a form of baiting. Well, those were lots of examples. I hope that you can start to kind of understand how baiting has happened in your life in a number of different ways. Okay, so this is what baiting is. Now, why? Why do narcissists do this? Why do they engage in baiting? Well, the reason narcissists engage in baiting is because of what's called the Grandiosity Gap. If you've been studying narcissism, you know what the Grandiosity Gap is. Narcissists, because they feel so profoundly insecure, regardless of how aware they are of this insecurity, that is what underlies their emotions. Because of this underlying insecurity, they will create a grandiose self-image, which oftentimes does not match up to their real life achievements. So they'll like talk, the talk, but they don't really walk the walk. They'll say they speak a number of languages, but they really don't. They'll say that they've achieved a number of things, but they really haven't. They'll say they know a bunch of people that are famous and stuff, but they really don't. And, narcissists realize that they aren't what they themselves make themselves out to be to other people. And this generates inner anxiety. Because imagine you feeling that you're so insignificant, so inadequate, insecure, that you have to create this false persona that is grandiose, right? And the whole time you notice that you are not this false persona. Imagine how hypersensitive to criticism you would be. People who have this grandiosity gap, they are very hypersensitive to criticism, and they're always kind of scanning the environment for fluctuations in the power play. So narcissists want to make sure that you are down or that you are wrong so that they can be dominant or that they can be right. And because of their grandiosity gap, the way that they feel about themselves, particularly covert narcissists, it can oscillate, right? Grandiose narcissists wouldn't feel the insecurity in and of itself so much. They might just like lash out in rage, right? But because of this oscillating sense of self and the grandiosity gap, when they feel that they've lost power over you, or that you're trying to tell them that their needs aren't the most important needs in the room, that they aren't the most intelligent person in the room, that they don't deserve all the attention, that they don't deserve the special treatment that they've been acting like they deserve. Whenever they get this message from the world, they feel the need to close that grandiosity gap, and they do this by grabbing that anxiety that they feel inside them and looking for a person in order to give their anxiety to. How do they do this? Well, if you feel something you don't want to feel, you look for someone and you find a person that you can treat in a way that will make them feel that. So if I feel humiliated, I'm going to, and I'm in a restaurant, I'm going to look for the first waiter who looks like a dumbass who can't defend himself, and I'm going to humiliate him publicly. And so baiting has a lot to do with, I feel like crap inside me all the time. I feel in fear, like I'm not good enough, or I feel like, I'm not being treated in the way that I should be treated. How dare you? And I have to even the score. So this grandiosity gap makes them constantly find these ways of making you wrong so they can be right, making you be down so they can be on top of you. And the interesting thing is, because it's such a part, it's so part and parcel in their personality, that they have to do it. So let's say that you've been watching videos on toxic narcissism for a while. You know what baiting is. You know what the gray rock method is. You know the whole observe but don't absorb sort of mentality. And you stop reacting to their baiting because you know that all the narcissist wants is to get that emotional reaction out of you that is going to make them feel alleviated when it comes to their heavy inner crap that they don't want to deal with. Narcissists are chronically envious of other people, so they like to see you down. It's hard to say this, particularly when we're dealing with parents, but envy, jealousy is an integral part of the narcissistic personality, and they are sadists in the sense that they do like to see you down. So if they notice that maybe you're going kind of gray rock, observing but not absorbing, they're going to be like, wait a second, you're not giving me the narcissistic supply that I want. They're going to get a little confused, and they're going to keep trying to find different types of baiting that might work with you. They'll, take something from the past that they know you're sensitive about and mention it to get a reaction out of you. They'll say something in public in front of other people, so you have to defend yourself. They'll just try to find different types of baits to see what is going to work. Okie dokie. So what do we do? What do you do about baiting? How do you protect yourself from this? Is there anything that can be done? Well, as usual, since the narcissistic personality revolves around making everyone in their lives give them narcissistic supply, what you have to do first and foremost is understand how you are providing that narcissistic supply. It's the same thing with the gray rock method. If all they want is that reaction out of you and you keep on giving it to them, and oftentimes we get angry and we lash out and we feel empowered because we think, oh, I showed them, but that's not true. What you've done is you've showed them that they can get a reaction out of you whenever they want one. So the way to deal with baiting is to be aware of one, how your narcissist works and how and what types of narcissistic supply they get from you, right? So you have to know how you react. You have to be perfectly clear on which reactions of yours are going to be the narcissistic supply that they want. And then when they start baiting you, you're obviously going to be, probably, at least in the beginning, you're going to be triggered. You know, it's horrible to be accused of stuff that you never did. You're going to be triggered. All those emotions are going to start swelling up inside you. You're going to want to like let them all out. Don't do that. Be nice and calm. And when it comes to what you let come out of your mouth or what behavior you allow yourself to have, go gray rock. So whatever they do, if they start provoking you, oh, because, you know, you're this and you're that or whatever, you just kind of listen to them. And then when they're done, oh, okay, sweetie, I understood. Thanks for telling me. You can be dying inside. You might be wanting to kill them inside, but don't give them their reaction. You're going to see the look of confusion on their faces. And then instead of giving them that reaction and giving them your energy, what you want to do is you want to get that energy back. You want to get it back, and you want to use it to analyze the emotional upheaval that's going on inside of you. And you're going to analyze it in the following way. You can ask yourself, what does he want? What reaction does he want or she want? Right? Be clear on that. What am I feeling inside of myself right now? Oh, I'm feeling unfairly treated, or I'm feeling provoked, I'm feeling angry. Okay. What is my objective right here? You have to be clear on what your objective, what your stance in life is and what your stance towards the narcissist in your life is at all given moments. Because if that's clear in your head, you have a clear goal. Let's say it's something like, my goal is to create psychological distance from the narcissist so that I may break free from his or her sphere of influence. You have to remind yourself at that moment, my goal is the psychological distance. My goal is the psychological distance. And understand that you're really only being your best friend if you respect your own goal first and not the narcissist's opinion of you. And and then you start like explaining yourself or defending yourself. So you have this inner conversation where you divert that energy that was gonna just come out in the form of a reaction towards doing your inner work, and in the sense that you're going to talk to yourself, to convince yourself to keep on creating that psychological distance, even if it hurts, even if it's difficult, even if they provoke you. Okay, lovely ladies, lovely gentlemen, that is what I wanted to tell you guys about baiting. I hope that you were able to identify different types of baiting in your life. I tried to give you guys different types of examples. Let's see if there's anything else here. All right, that's all I wanted to tell you guys. So again, if you enjoy the way that I approach healing from childhood narcissistic abuse, I'm launching the Inner Mastery Lab on July 3rd, and we start on the 20th. If you want to know more about it, just click on the link in the description of this video if you're on YouTube, or just click on the link in my biography if you're on Instagram. If you have any questions, just DM me. Let me know what your doubts are about the Inner Mastery Lab, and we will work through them, all right? Thank you so very much. If you're watching this on YouTube and you thought this video was useful, then please do share it. It might be useful for somebody else. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever I release videos in English, and I also release videos in Portuguese as well. And comment, let me know what you thought about all of these examples, if you were able to identify them in your life, and if you would maybe want to add any more different types of baiting to the list. Oh, there's a kitty cat over here. It's really cold in São Paulo right now, so I literally cannot do anything without a cat on my lap. Okay guys, thank you so much for your attention, and see you next time.